Um, I'm going live. How exciting once again. I'm actually going to be joined today by Maps by Owen. He'll be on in just a second. But I kind of wanted to explain what we're actually going to just be doing. Today it's kind of like just a chill session. We're just going to be chatting and stuff like that. But I'm hoping that in the future I'll be able to do this with other map creators and stuff like that. So yeah, we can just go. Hopefully the connection's going to be strong enough. Hello.
Hello.
Hopefully the connection's going to be good enough for us to stay live.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
And can you hear me still okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And you?
Yep, all good. I've got my microphone and I'm ready to
go.
Nice. So I kind of wanted to just start off by answering some of the questions that people have messaged us. So I'm just going to pick one at random and we can just discuss at will. So probably the first one I'm going to ask is, what's something new that you want to try in map making?
Ooh. Shall I go first?
Yeah, I mean, by all means.
I have to think of the answer now. What's something new? Well, I think I've just started something new and I want to get better at it, and that's trying to do things digitally, which is I bought an iPad and trying to use Procreate.
Yeah, which iPad did you buy?
I bought the new iPad Pro.
Fancy. Oh, look at it, so shiny.
It was my 40th birthday present to myself.
Oh, nice.
So yeah. Yeah, I've kind of been waiting for ages to buy it. So it was when they announced it, yeah, I went straight in. Yeah, so trying to learn to do things digitally is really kind of the new thing. But what I'd also really love to do is learn how to use like color markers. I think Copic is perhaps, I think they're like alcohol-based markers.
Yeah, I've seen some really amazing ones. Somebody has been doing like a sepia, I don't know how to say it, colored one, and it looks really great. I'll see if I can scroll and find who's been doing it and I can shout them out. But no color is something that I really want to try, because I mean, I guess mine's kind of like,
you have no color at all.
Well, I've got a cheeky bit of red in there, but I would say generally I'm pretty black and white as it goes. But color is something that I'm itching to start, but I don't really know how to integrate it, whether I should do some with pencils or I've got some watercolor pencils, which I think would be quite interesting. Yeah. I've seen on the Facebook group on the fantasy world building and maps, or whatever it's called, Shaya, she's just doing one that's like blue and purple and looks gorgeous. So yeah, I think color is something that I'd really like to integrate too. How have you found
say again?
So how have you found, now you've got your snazzy iPad, how does it compare doing digital to traditional mapping?
It's a tough transition, I think. It's definitely difficult. Drawing on a screen that's really shiny is kind of strange because the little pencil moves around in a very different way.
Yeah.
It's made me miss pencil drawing, which anyone who's seen my feed recently might have seen that I've done a bit more of. But yeah, I mean, I love being able to erase the mistakes easily.
Yeah.
And that is really a game changer. And sort of fiddling about with the brushes and trying to find these sort of perfect tools, which I don't think I'm there yet. I've used a lot of Josh Stolatz's. I think
the Bard pack. They look really cool.
Yeah, they're really good. Because I started off with some brushes that were supposed to be, I'm going to grab a pen, supposed to be a replacement for these, Micron.
I know them well.
But that brush was really weird because every time you touch the tip of the Apple Pencil down, it kind of makes a slight movement. And then in going into digital, I wanted to it brings out the perfectionist, where because you can erase something, you kind of erase it until you get it right.
Do you find you have more freedom with the digital mapping, or do you think actually it's easier to get what you want from the traditional maps?
I think definitely at the moment I can get what I want more from traditional. without a doubt.
Yeah.
Especially the pencil sketching, even though in theory the pencil sketching should be just as easy in digital. I think there's something about the way my pencil sort of digs into the paper, which
it's
is
just a different tactile experience. Like, you can feel the friction of it, and like I have heard about these screen protectors that makes it easier to draw on the iPad and stuff like that, but I just don't know how it could compare to actually drawing on paper. You'll have to give us a review once you've got yours.
Yeah, I've ordered the Paper-like screen protector, but I haven't got it yet. And when I do, maybe that'll change it all again. But yeah, I spent a little while trying to recreate my pencil style on the iPad, and then once you try it with a pencil again, you realise that nothing really compares to a pencil.
Do you have any favourite pencils? Which ones do you use? I love a good stationery review.
Which
is it a mechanical one?
A mechanical pencil, Faber-Castell mechanical.
Do you find that they break a lot? Because I used to use a mechanical one and I was like, snap, snap. I don't know if I'm just really heavy-handed or I'm using it right.
There's the amount of tip I have. I don't know if you can see that.
Ah, okay, it's really tiny.
Just a tiny
bit.
Out. People ask me about pencils all the time, so this is the pencil. I've got a few others, but this is the best one, and the reason is because it's got a.
It's got an eraser on the end.
It's got an eraser. I always said rubber, and then
rubber.
Thought that was hilarious.
I started saying eraser, and I didn't even realise that I was doing it. I was like, eraser. That sounds like a foreign word. It's a rubber. So I just have these ones that they're just normal pencils, but they're Faber-Castell. They came in like a pack of 12, I think, but I've literally had them for like, I don't know, 5-6 years, and I just sort of like used them sporadically. It wasn't until I started doing maps I was like, finally, I have a use for them. But I have said this in a couple of my other lives that I tend to use the harder pencils, because using the soft B pencils, like I just end up with like grey arms, and I'm just dragging it around. And like, this is the look I was going for, just like dragging it around. So I find that using the harder ones help me to not just get grey arms while I'm drawing. And I sort of draw a bit like this, so it literally is the hole underneath of my arm that gets covered.
I definitely use my hand as like the anchor for, like the ball of the hand. I don't use my arm so much, but But I draw, usually I just draw in this little notebook most of the time.
What notebook is that? Is it something you'd recommend?
Yeah, definitely. It just says Dingbats on the back. And I think
Dingbats, that's a funny name.
It's got a nice picture of an elephant on the front.
Love a good elephant, yeah.
I think it's got something to do with...
Has it got special paper?
There you go.
Is it plain, dotted?
Sorry? It's plain, it's slightly like yellow.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Slightly, sort of, I don't know what you call it, like slightly ivory or whatever. But it's close to white, and it kind of, if you scan it black and white, it scans white. It doesn't leave a hue or anything.
So do you use that notebook to, if you digitalize an image, do you just scan from the book and edit it in Procreate or Photoshop?
I edit in Photoshop. So yeah, scan from the book. I bought a scanner at the start of the COVID lockdown. Because I wasn't.
Oh, nice. Which scanner do you have?
We bought a scanner. It's by Brother. It's not a great scanner. It's sort of a scanner laser printer all in one kind of thing.
Okay.
It's good enough. It scans at 600 ppi.
That's pretty good.
And
handy.
And it does it's only A4. So I did one. I finished an A3 commission just before lockdown, and I planned to scan it at work where we've got large scanners. But so we got stuck at home, so I had to try and scan 2 A4s.
Oh, piece it together.
But because it's not a great scanner, the edges of the bed are kind of slightly blurry, so I had these crappy blurry bits, and it didn't quite line up. But it was
well, it's a learning experience.
Indeed.
And at least you can do it if you had to. You're not relying on trying to use somebody else's scanner.
And what do you do?
Well, I'm quite lucky. There's literally a professional print shop that's 5 minutes drive from my house. So I just went in there and I just looked at them and said, "Could I borrow your scanner, please?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure." And they've got a professional scanner in there, so they use that for all their clients. So there's a good quality scanner, and it means I don't have to. At the moment, I'm not planning on investing in a scanner, seeing as I have that one that I can use, kind of like for a really low cost. But I think in the future I probably will get one, and like trying to do some of my own prints and stuff like that.
I think it's worth having if you're drawing a lot. I think it kind of becomes an essential bit of kit, really.
Yeah, it's just a matter of space at the moment. I'm sure that my cat would just try to destroy it as soon as it got into the house. Although maybe he'd be more interested in the box that it came in. He just loves boxes.
Fair enough. So should we do another question?
Yeah, have you got one for one that your followers have asked?
I'll have to find it. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to take the first one I got asked, and you can answer it first, which is from a little dragon drawing. And it's, why do you like cartography?
Wow. I mean, there's just so many reasons why I like cartography. I think the two main reasons why I like cartography is, it gives me like this escape from my day-to-day life. I have a very vivid imagination, and I have done since I was a kid. Like, I've always been thinking up worlds and the creatures that are going to live there and what is it going to look like, and this gives me a way to outlet it into something physical in the world, and I find that to be a really therapeutic process, and it's something that I can look forward to, and yeah, I think that the maps that I make look half decent, so it's kind of like a satisfying thing as well, that I can look and be like, wow, I made that with my own two hands. So I really love that part of it, and also the community. Like, I've just met so many new people, like you, my little guinea pig map friend, and just getting to talk to people and like doing commissions and learning about other people's worlds. That's just so like rewarding, and people that are interested in the same stuff as me. I think because what we're doing is quite niche, I would say, when I say to other people who aren't interested in fantasy cartography, they're like, so what do you do like in your spare time? But I'm like, well, it's a bit out there, but when you're actually in it, I think it's just really cool that there is actually a lot of people that are really interested in it, and getting to chat to people about that is just, it's really rewarding.
How's the response been to your cartography from like your sort of real life friends, like the people you knew before?
So I would say overwhelmingly positive. I mean, there definitely has been some like blank looks where I've been like, fantasy cartography, and then there's just crickets. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, maps and stuff. They're like, yeah, okay, cool. I hope that you're happy, sort of thing. But like my mum is really a fan of my maps, and she's always liking them. And my boyfriend is also really supportive of me doing them. So even though I'm not sure if they necessarily get it, like they are really enthusiastic about me doing it. I think there are some people that have kind of been like, nerd, which I'm kind of expecting, but anybody who has interest outside of what's classed as like normal, I think people just, well, that's a bit weird. We're just gonna like, but I'd say that unless I think that people are really going to be interested in it, I don't like overly go hard on the talking about maps, just because I'm like, I don't want to bore people. I want to talk to people that are interested about maps just the same as me. What about you?
So I was very keen to sort of keep my cartography kind of a secret from my real world friends when I started out, because of how nerdy it is. Not that I feel like I don't really know why, I just kind of wanted it to just be a thing that was kind of private, but share it with as many people as I could who were strangers. So
it doesn't really add up, does it? But I guess it's the strangers that like it that you're sharing with. So.
Yeah, perhaps it's easier to take comments from strangers, maybe. But anyway, after a while, I decided to sort of just post a map that I'd drawn on Facebook, and I was overwhelmed with the response from my Facebook friends, people I hadn't spoke to in years, kind of messaging me about it. And it also brought out the woodwork. Loads of my friends play D&D, which I didn't know about. So that's been really cool. Just
well, that's really cool.
Finding new D&D mates who I just had been friends with and talked about things for years, and then just never realised we were both D&D players. So
are you doing like a campaign at the moment? Have you like drawn any maps, or are you just doing D&D in general?
Yeah, so I'm part of 3 campaigns right now. So
3? You're a busy man.
Yeah. I started off playing. So I'm every Tuesday I play board games with some friends, and about 2 years ago, the guy whose house we go to, or used to go to, who's got just hundreds and hundreds of board games. He was a D&D player from kind of the old.
Oh, my connection's gone a bit bad.
Talking.
Yeah, still there. It was just we had a bit of a break.
D&D, so, could you? Maybe you couldn't hear me. Anyway, I'll recap. I lost you. Maybe you lost me. We started playing D&D, and we're still playing the campaign that we started back then 2 years ago. It's taken a little break during the sort of COVID lockdown, which is annoying because we got to a point where I planned this long speech, which was quite funny, and I was sort of itching to deliver it, and it never quite got there.
Have you not thought about doing it online?
Sorry?
Have you thought about doing it online?
Yeah, so this is how we've ended up in another couple of campaigns, actually. So when we weren't playing when we didn't get a full crowd for that main D&D game, I started running a side game kind of as my first time DMing. And then I've started a new campaign for that, of which a lot of my maps are based on the world that I've drawn for that, which is, it kind of ripped off an idea I heard in a podcast, which was about some gnomes. So I made all the characters.
I love gnomes. Like, I'm always either just like a gnome or a halfling, just something small and naughty.
Yeah.
It's just me.
Well, I started off as a dwarf fighter in the main campaign, and still am. We're about 13th or 14th level in that one, I think, now. But anyway, yeah, so I started the gnomes, and then the world that the gnomes live in is called Norfolk with a G. And then that's why I draw a lot of Norfolk.
That's great. I love that.
Which, for anyone who doesn't know, Norfolk's a county in England.
Well, that's really tickled me.
Most of my maps I draw for that. Like all my dungeons, I kind of draw generally with the intention of using in that campaign, and a lot of like the sort of regions and things. And then I draw other maps for fun, of course. And then since the lockdown started, there's a friend of ours who wanted to run Lost Mines of Fandever, whatever it's called, the starter set campaign. So we've been doing that. And in that one, I'm a player, not a DM, which is nice. We haven't got very far into it yet, but I'm playing a cleric in that one who's got a very squeaky Irish accent, which I get to put on over Zoom every week.
I'm not going to ask you to replicate that in this live video. I mean, if you want to, by all means, complete the live video with your Irish accent. But
well, let's just say it's probably not a very good accent.
Oh, it's brilliant! I love it.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, enough of that.
So yeah, that's so that's.
Do you prefer being a DM or a player? I know this isn't really map related, but just a curious question.
I prefer being a DM, I think, because
so you can torture people.
No, probably just because I just love having something to do with the maps that I draw.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, and I don't think I'm very good at the world building side of it yet, but it's getting there. You know, yeah, and you can. I think you can. For me, I can explore my imagination more being a DM than I can as a player.
Yeah.
Sometimes I tend to switch off as a player. I don't know why. I just suddenly lose focus and I'm like, oh, crap.
Well, yeah, because sometimes it's sort of like happening to you rather than you. If there's something going on with another player, you're just sort of like.
1 second, I've just got to shut the window because there's some noise outside.
Okay, no worries. I'll do some.
Okay, now I'm back.
Interpretive dance while you're on.
Someone's pushing a trolley down the road and it's making a right.
Rude! Don't they know that we're doing this very important live video?
So do you play?
I have done in the past. At the moment, Spain, for me, it's not really accessible to do D&D, at least in a physical like meeting with a group. I have toyed with the idea of trying to find an online group, but at the moment I have 2 jobs, so alongside with the mapping, so I think it would be quite difficult for me to find the time, but I would love to be able to do it again one day. So I just keep doing my maps in the meantime, just reminiscing on good times. Also, like, most of the people in this area, obviously they're Spanish speaking. My Spanish is acceptable, but I think when you're getting in the heat of like an encounter or whatever, I would just be hella lost.
Yeah, right.
In what I'm doing. So maybe one day I can find a friendly bunch of gnomes the same as me, and we can have a good game. Yeah. So
so many online resources now to do it. So
yeah, no, there's a lot more scope for it for sure, and so many more people are getting into it as well. Like people that wouldn't necessarily have even thought about it. I think Stranger Things really elevated it as like a cool thing to do, because they were obviously playing it in the first season, and then that's sort of like people are like, oh wow, that's actually really cool. And I agree, yes, it is really cool.
Definitely.
So
yeah, I think it's opened up this whole cartography thing to me. That's kind of how I got into it. So yeah.
I was going to say, what came first, the cartography or the D&D?
D&D, but very soon after the cartography. After a few sessions, I wanted to have a go at running it myself.
Yeah.
And then, like, I've always been obsessed with maps. My dad was a geography teacher. I've always loved kind of ordnance survey maps. In my van, I've got a little shelf of maps.
Can you read maps? Can you read real life maps?
Yeah, I can read.
Do you go on a hike and not get lost?
Yeah. I could orienteer myself across some moors.
Very impressive. I tried to do that.
I haven't tried in about 20 years, but you know.
Well, we'll just take you out into a field, spin you around a few times, and set you off. Here you go. It's an OS map. Have fun. No, I did try to do that. Oh, sorry. Semi-successfully. I did do it on my Duke of Edinburgh award. You know, the classic, like, do it when you're in college.
Yeah.
And we got one day in, and then there was some rain, and some paths may have been lost, and we may have been, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours over our deadline, and they had to come looking for us in a van. But that was another story.
Oh, I've lost you on the video.
Oh, the connection looks like it's gone a bit weird again.
No, sadly not. Evie with us?
I think, yep, I can hear you again now. Sorry, it's because we're like literally on the top of a mountain, and the Wi-Fi is somewhat to be desired. But yeah, we can do another question before it drops out again. I'm going to pick one of the ones that have been sent. How do you stay motivated?
That's a good question. I had the same question actually. I wonder if it's from the same person. We should give him a shout. I got it from Foul Knave, who's another cartographer.
Same. Yeah, it's the same question. The same person. Cool. So shout out Foul Knave. Foul Knave.
Foul Knave. Thank you for the question. How do I stay motivated? Sometimes it's tricky, right? You know, I think anyone who tries to draw continuously, you know, you're going to go through peaks and troughs, right, of inspiration and things like that.
Yeah.
There's a weird feeling somehow with having an Instagram account that you have to just, like, if you're not drawing, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Motivation. I draw pine trees because it gives me like an instant kind of decent look.
They do. They just transform a map. Just love me a good tree.
The trees transform it, yeah, and do a mountain range.
So I'm just seeing this question at the bottom.
Yeah, from Dimension Door Art. Yeah, we've been around
Yeah.
map making for a time now. What are the things you still want to improve?
Everything.
Everything. For me, definitely is colouring and shading, particularly in digital. I'd quite like to be able to find a way to perfectly recreate what I can draw in pencil in pen as well. That would be good.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be nice. I think I would like to be able to control my imagination a little bit more and be a bit more organized about how I lay down a map, because I cannot tell you how many times I've started something and then I have just been merrily drawing away and I've thought, oh balls, I can't fit something in and it's really important. I should have thought about this before I started, because I was just like merrily mapping away, and then I've it's too far. You've gone too far and you can't go back, and you haven't left a space, and you have to either make it really tiny or just completely leave it out, and you're like, I just get really annoyed at myself. Many expletives have been shouted into the night. Particularly with leaving space for names and stuff on maps, like the text, because some maps I use like banners and stuff, and some of them I don't, and sometimes I just completely forget to do it. And compasses as well. If I don't draw it in the first instant, then it's probably likely I'm going to forget right till the end, and there's not going to be any space for it, or I have to somehow find a way to like meld it into the coastline so that it looks like it was supposed to be there the whole time. But yeah, I get a bit carried away sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about leaving space, and that's something I still mess up all the time.
Yeah.
In my head, or I leave too much. Like the other day, I drew a map and I left I sort of left these big bits of the forest open in order to fill in with names, and then the size of text I had to use to put all the rest of the place names in then just got lost in these expanses in the middle of the forest. So yeah, that's something to really think about. I think it's not helped by the fact that often when I draw, if I'm not drawing a commission, I kind of don't do a lot of planning in my
kind of wing it.
A lot of it's very organic.
Yeah.
And I think it's things like place names and compasses and borders and things that suffer from that.
I did have one question I thought I wanted to ask you. How do you come up with your place names? Because some of them are pretty out there, and they just give me a laugh every time.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know how to answer. I mean, I'm absolutely awful at coming up with like really good sort of high fantasy names for places. A lot of the time, earlier, sort of in my time of drawing maps, I would get an Ordnance Survey map out, find somewhere fairly remote, like something in Wales or something, and then look for like the places of the names of tiny little places, right? And you find all sorts.
Yeah.
And sometimes
I imagine Welsh is pretty almost unpronounceable.
Yeah. Maybe Wales is a bad example, but I mean, no,
it's good though, because I've done similar things.
And I think I can't remember where it was now, but I found on an OS map there was a place called like the Devil's Staircase or something, and I thought, what a great name for a place. So that made it straight into one of my maps. That was just a literally carbon copy. And then for the more random names, for the fancy names, I often just use a fancy name generator, and perhaps edit them. I've also taken a kind of Google Translate and used like Gaelic and Welsh and I end up with all the tropey kind of crap, right? Like Dark Tower, Black Hills, Death,
the standard,
Lake,
Death Valley,
and then translate that, and then sometimes that can just and then for the more obscure names, which I think is probably what you're referring to with your question.
There's one that really, like Nibblington. I just loved it, Nibblington. I can't remember which map it was on, but and like the overcompensation. It just cracked me up. I was like, classic Owen.
So yeah, for them, I guess there's just I don't know, there's something just in my brain that just thinks right.
You're just gifted.
It's kind of like bollocks to it. I'm just going to write down everything, if you know what I mean. So I did a map based on the names of STDs, because
yes, you did.
And I just thought, why not, right? You know, no one else.
And the bread one as well. That was good. I enjoyed that one. The bread themed one.
Oh, the bread. Well, that was based on the Isle of Dread, which is an old D&D module. So I was leafing through it, or online probably, and just thought, you know what, let's just make the Isle of Bread. And then that kind of just wrote itself. I wanted to make a little hex map, and that's what that was. So yeah, it's just just I think bollocks to it is kind of how I approach it, really. Yeah.
This is my approach to life in general, really.
And I mean, really, when I make a map like that, you're kind of putting in. I mean, most of those maps, or all of those, are not for my home game. They're just maps that I'm just like drawing, you know, like organically off the top of my head, and I'm not thinking about. And then those maps, I put them on like my website or on Patreon or whatever. And really the intention for them is to just be blank, right? So people can take them and add their own place names. I don't expect anyone to go and have a world called Gonorrhea Land, you know.
Why not?
Well, they, you know, maybe they want to. Or, you know, go and set a campaign in Niblington, or whatever.
I am campaigning for a campaign in Niblington.
Well, you can start a campaign in Niblington. I'll say.
Okay, I'm gonna.
That can be your online thing.
So this is an official threat.
Yeah. So really, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is it's just like filling space, right? You know, you want the maps look better with names on, and then I can just combine, kind of my childish humour of finding rude words funny. Stick them in a map.
Who doesn't find it funny? Let's be honest. We all have a good laugh at that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go for another question.
Okay.
Or do we even get your answer from the last question, or have I just been going on for ages?
No, I think
Okay, well, we're going to give you a question, and it's favourite pen.
Favourite pen. Wow, where do I begin? So.
Hold on, I'm going to grab mine.
Yeah, get your favourite pen out.
This thing.
Snapsies. Yeah, I mean, actually, I have to admit that. So I only had this one and the 0.8. I'm just pointing this, and you actually can't focus on it. But the 8 pen. So I only had 2 to start with. So this one was my favourite. But I have to admit, I recently bought the pack of them, which had a lot more different sizes, and actually, this one has now become my second favourite. Sorry, little guy. Actually, now this 0.01 is my favourite rather than the 0.005, just because I find that this one, I destroy it. I am this destroyer of pens. And although this one is great for like tiny little details, I've gone through so many of them, and this one is just a little bit more hardy, and it just gives. I will do like a line around, and then I'll go back and go over it again, because I find that with these ones, even though they dry really fast, which is great because of my like random, you know, hand movements, they do kind of like fade a little bit in the first time you do them. So I quite often have to go back over to get like a really good colour. And this sometimes means I can bypass that because the line is strong enough to do it. It's just trees really that I use the 0.005 for now, because I think the one's just a little bit too thick.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, probably 0.005.
I find that 0.005 suffers when you're erasing like the pencil lines as well. It's kind of on certain papers it kind of disappears a bit. But I
gets a bit faded, yeah.
I use 4 pens for everything, and it's the 02, 01, 05, 005, and 003 occasionally. And I very rarely go above that weight now. Sometimes
I'd say the only time that I use the really thick bad boys for the outlines of coasts and stuff like this one, it makes it actually like stand out a bit more, which I can't really get with the other ones. I suppose you could use the 0.05, but I've got the 0.08, so I'm just going to use it. And I've got some other ones which are Faber-Castell ones, which I do use sometimes, but I wouldn't say that they were my favourite. But I'm not going to go off on a random tangent about pens again.
Yeah, I'll get about pens for too long. One thing I would say is that anyone who's starting out, right, and you're kind of thinking, oh God, what, I need to get the right pen and all that. You absolutely don't need to get the right pen. You know,
the pen will find you. Believe in the pen.
They find you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just literally draw the biro, whatever you've got, just use it.
Actually, yeah, biros. I haven't posted it ever to Instagram, but I did do one in biro, and it actually turned out pretty well. You can get a pretty reasonable range of line thicknesses out of just one standard biro, depending on how heavy you are with it.
Okay, cool. Well, my favourite pen is also what we're talking about with 005 is Pigma Micron. If anyone doesn't know,
Pigma Micron. I am curious to try the Copics in the future because I've seen that they look to be fun, but I'm pretty content with the Microns at the moment.
I mean, it's only my favourite because it's all I've ever used. I started off with one pen which was really smudgy, so every time I draw and then my hand would smudge it, and it was really annoying. And then I started using these, and I've just never changed. So I'm sure there might be better pens anyway. So let's go on from that, right? And we'll go to what are the first steps for those who want to start drawing maps?
To begin, I would say if it's the first time you've ever drawn a map, don't worry about too much about planning it, because I think you probably get hung up in trying to leave space and stuff like that, and it will prevent you from actually starting the process. Have a look at some inspirational stuff, have a scroll through Instagram, see what other people are doing, maybe watch some YouTube tutorials and stuff like that. I mean, Nate from WASD20, I think he's probably got the most well-known ones, and there's other cartographers out there that are producing videos and stuff like that, which can be really helpful. But I'd say just sort of, if you're struggling for thinking of what it is that you're trying to do, maybe decide if you want to do like a full world or whether you want to do like a zoomed in part. Maybe that will be easier for you. And then just sort of, I just wiggle around and just see what happens. In my last live video, I just drew some circles, like literally, and that is enough for you to start a map. If you just use the circles, it's kind of like that acceptance that maybe the first one that you do isn't going to look like a whole lot, but you'll learn a lot from that first one, and then you'll learn a lot from your second one, and soon you'll be making maps, you know, left, right, and centre.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, really. I think a lot of people, when you start any artistic style, you put a lot of pressure on yourself you see what other people produce, and you're like, right, I want to do something that looks like that. But it's really hard to do that, right? It's really hard to create something that's cohesive and looks like the style that you want to look, because you've got to sort of train yourself to do it. So I was recently trying to draw faces and sort of cartoon characters and things like that, and I found that really frustrating because I couldn't replicate the people who I thought were amazing at it really fast. But actually, if you look back over a few weeks of doing it, you can see your own progress. So, you know, exactly what Eve says, start off on, I say start small as well, maybe just get an A5 bit of paper, even cut that.
Yeah, or even post it. Like, I did a few like post-its, you know, just doodling and seeing what happens. And it sometimes a huge piece of paper can be really daunting, even for people that have been doing it for a long time, if you haven't got a specific idea in mind. And even if you're just drawing shapes on those post-its, you can always scale that up onto another size if you look at it and think, oh, that's actually a really cool shape, I want to try and work with that. And if it looks like rubbish, then you can just do another one. It's not...
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, you know, starting small, definitely, I think, you know, because then you haven't got this massive bit of paper. And then also, you don't need to think, okay, I need to have this perfect mountain range that makes sense with where the land is, and where, you know, drawing tectonic plates is a great starting point. Like if you're just going to draw some squares or circles, whatever, like you've said. and then, you know, the mountains might be where they join. But that doesn't matter if you're starting, right? Because you're not going to finish some amazing map that's going to be like the be all and end all of your D&D campaign or sit on your wall. That's not going to be the first thing you draw. So just draw some mountains and then go, right, fuck it, there's a lake there and there's a forest there, right? And then that's like your 3 key components. Again, I completely agree, sort of copying, just literally copying what other people have done. It's stuff you like, copy it, figure out how that works, right? And you can even trace it. I think as long as you're not passing it off as your own, you know, your own design, as it were,
definitely
fine. So yeah, and then practice as much as you can.
Yeah. I do have a question for you. You just mentioned about plate tectonics and stuff like that. How do you feel about the realistic world geography and using that in a fantasy map, and whether that makes a good fantasy map or whether fantasy maps can just be anything?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know how I feel about that. So generally, when I make a map, I plan it. I do draw some plates and things, and I think, right, okay, you know, here's where the sea level or the land level's lower, so, you know, things like that, and where the mountains would go in relation to rivers, and, you know, things like rivers flow from mountains, they don't flow towards mountains. You know, those are really simple things. And when you see a map that doesn't show that, it can not make sense. You know, generally, if you have mountains in the middle of the land, the river's going to flow away from it to the sea, right? So that's kind of important. But if you look at stuff like the map from Lord of the Rings, for example, you know, there's lots of blank spaces in some of those maps.
Inconsistencies as well.
Yeah.
From the real world.
And the first map that ever really the first fantasy map that I ever really loved was from the Sword of Shannara by Terry Brooks. And in that, again, there's lots of blank bits. You know, there's lots of empty parts where the story that's told fills in those blanks. You know, so I can't remember what the question was. What did you actually ask me? Whether it needs to be all perfect?
Well, sort of like, if, for example, I was to draw a map where the rivers were flowing towards the mountains, would that, you know, is that inherently a bad thing? Can fantasy maps have those things and it still be a good map? Also, kind of like, you know, things, we can sometimes draw things as fantasy cartographers that are literally just for aesthetic purposes. They may not necessarily have formation in real world geography. And like, how do you feel about that in general?
Okay. So I think if you want to have your rivers flowing from the sea towards the mountain, as long as there's a reason, you know, I think, you know, it's your fantasy world, right? You know, people draw fantasy lands that are floating in midair, you know, and with waterfalls running off the side and things like that. So
yeah,
you can
on
make
the backs of turtles.
and all you have to do is tell the story that goes with it, right? And that's what we're doing. I think if you want to produce a map that's, you know, kind of something for everybody to use, which is probably what I try and do a lot with what I'm producing. You know, I want people to take my maps and stick their own names on them. And I think for that, it needs to make a bit more sense, you know, because that's hard to justify. If 10 people used it, they'd all need the same reason that the rivers flow towards the mountain, as an example. But yeah, I mean, it's fancy, right? It can be anything, you know. That's why we have mountains sticking out the earth on their own with nothing around them and things like that, you know, because it's all, it doesn't need to be perfect.
Yeah, no,
the more
absolutely.
story you can tell with it, the better, I think.
Yeah. Cool.
Do we have anything else from the people who are watching?
Yeah, if you've got any questions and you're following us live, then feel free to ask us some questions. I kind of had just one other thing I wanted to like ask you about, and it's kind of something we've already like touched on. It's about perfectionism and how you deal with that, and especially now that you've started to have like a pretty big following. Congratulations on nearly 8,000 followers. Like, how do you, not necessarily the motivation, but, you know, not being put off and keeping up with drawing maps, even when maybe you don't really feel like it, and that sort of thing.
I've lost you a little bit at the end there after that, and.
Oh, sorry.
But we'll go.
The internet and the
I've kind of lost your audio, so I'm going to start just answering the first bit of the question.
Okay.
Been going. April. Drew a few maps, wasn't quite getting there, and then I stopped drawing maps entirely for about a week and a half. And that's always, you don't always have to force yourself to draw every day. And I think it's important to find like the things that do motivate you, and then trying new techniques is also really important, because if you're not learning something new, then sort of what's the point, right?
Sorry, the connection on my end's really bad.
You know, this.
Hello, is anybody there? Hey, sorry guys, I've just removed Owen just so I can see if people can still hear me, because my internet's just been really bad. So Owen, if you can hear me, you can just request to go back into the chat. I just thought maybe this would kickstart the internet again. Hello. Hopefully the internet will hold out for a few minutes more. It just decided, nope, that is enough.
I didn't know if people had lost me or lost you. So yeah.
Well, I was like, I'll just get rid of him and get him back again. See if it'll work. Turn it off, turn it on.
Good idea.
So yeah, sorry, you were answering one of the questions from the chat.
So I was answering. Yeah, so we got from Moonlight Maps, what are your dream map projects? Yeah, well, I was just finishing or starting saying that I really, really would love to get something in one of the official, you know, D&D productions. You know,
yeah, like Devon Rue, the one that she's just done with Critical Role. That's so exciting. Like, I'm very envious of her, but she did a fantastic job. And yeah. I mean, that's kind of like, I think something like that, or having a map for something like Game of Thrones, for example, doing the map for something like that, or a TV show, like that would be amazing. Having your work kind of like out there in that way. But to be honest, every project that I start that's new kind of feels big and exciting, because it's usually something completely new that I haven't done before. I'd say that this map that I just,
don't really want to see.
Oh no. Internet, why do you have to be this way? I don't know if you can hear me or I can hear you, but the internet froze on a really funny picture of your face. You were like, I should have screenshotted you, used it against you. No, I would never do that. But yeah, I was just saying, this map that I've finished of my own world, I'm kind of excited to start doing that a bit more, because I plan to start doing more like dungeon maps and city maps and stuff like that, because that's not something I've really tried before. So I think that's probably the most nearby big project that I have planned. And also finishing the Skyrim map that I'm doing, like that's had a really good response, just because a lot of people really love Skyrim, just like me. Who doesn't love dragons? I mean, come on, they're awesome.
Absolutely. I'm going to give a quick hello to Braden Hallam.
A deadly duo. You know it.
Hey mate, how you going? I think Braden might be one of my patrons. So thanks for tuning in. I don't know if you spotted it, Braden, but you had a city named after you in one of my recent maps. Maybe you should look for it.
He's famous. Maybe I should request to be in one of your maps.
I think you actually already have been named in one.
Have I?
A little while ago. I named a few people. And maybe, I can't remember now. I'd have to check. I'll let you know.
I'm going to have to go and have a little scroll back.
Okay, should we see if anyone else has?
Yeah, well, kind of. If you've got any other questions, then ask away while the internet lasts. Yeah. And then if not, we can sort of start to wrap it up. I think it'll just be me going, But in the meantime, while we're asking to see if anyone has any other questions.
You can't hear Eve like I can't.
Hello, is it me you're looking for?
You're sort of jumping in and out, Eve, a little bit.
Oh no.
So maybe, yeah, if we don't get any response, maybe we should call it a day there, perhaps.
I mean, we have been at it for nearly an hour, so
yeah, I can't
it's been a chat. 10 out of 10 would map again. But yeah, thanks for just chatting with me about maps. It's been really cool. I've enjoyed it. Oh. No, I have not gone. I am still here. Sorry. Hello.
Suppose your very first map drawings.
Map drawings. Oh, sorry, I've had to kick him out again. The internet's just shocking today. I don't know what. It was fine to start with. Now it's just doing a number on me. Sorry. Hopefully we'll get there. We'll make it to 1 hour, I swear it.
Yeah. So did you see the question from Sophina B?
Expose your very first map drawings. I don't actually have them on me. They're in a wardrobe somewhere in yonder bedroom, which maybe I'll whack them out on another occasion.
Well, mine exist in my Instagram feed somewhere. If you scroll all the way to the very bottom, you'll see some of the first things I drew. But the very first thing I drew was on the back of a job application, which I didn't end up applying for because I was too busy drawing the map on the back of it. And
relatable. Map problems.
Yeah. And and Braden asked if we ever done a collab or will do one. This is the first thing we've done, right? So
yeah, this is actually, we did have a little chat before this live, but it's the first time we've actually shared our faces to one another.
Well, I think we've lost her again. Maybe we should.
Oh no. Right, this is the last time. I'm just going to let him come back in and we'll wrap it up because I think my internet's just telling me that I should call it a day. So Owen, just come back for 1 minute and if we can say goodbye. Oh no. Okay, I think this is my internet saying, you've had enough, love. Pack it up. Come on. Stop having a chat. Okay, well, thank you so much for having a chat with me and for everyone that's joined our live. I'm going to try and save the video so that you, Owen, can upload it on your feed if you want to. And I'm definitely going to upload it on mine so people can recap all the fun. And yeah, I hope that we can chat about maps again soon.
Definitely, me too. And thank you everyone for questions and sticking around and posting little hearts and things. That's all really appreciated.
Yeah. Okay, well,
all right.
Adios, one and all.
See you later.
Bye.